Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I've got some new things going on. My eyes aren't doing so good, so I need to wear these now. And I have something else new, which is a plugin called Gatelope. Now, this has been popular for a while, but it hasn't been available to most people for a while. It is essentially a gate that also works as a filter, and I can show you how that works. We can avoid alien kittens this time, and I'll just use my drums. The drums all by themselves are like that. Then you'll notice we've got treble sustain and bass sustain. Now what that's going to do is it's going to either start rolling off the treble or rolling off the bass, both at different speeds. So that works kind of like this. Really fast bass roll off makes everything be super bright. You'll notice that I'm setting the threshold fairly high here. It's like any gate in that you want to set it wisely to avoid crazy sputtering noises or whatever, but you do have a certain amount of adjustability having to do with the sustains. I'll demonstrate that. Like here, I'll start showing you. You'll also note attack speed can slow down how fast it opens, so you can get a different feel on the front edge of it maybe. But this is the real secret to what it was invented for. The idea was it was invented for a fellow named Ola Sonmark on way back when in like mixerman.net. And he was looking for a gate that he could put onto tom-tom mics, where it would open up, it would give him the tom-tom sound, but it would resist cymbals. And he was looking for stuff that would really bring out the lows, but it would wipe the cymbals real hard. And what we've got here is exactly the situation he was concerned with. The cymbals going on, but Ola would be wanting to get those tom sounds and get rid of the cymbal signs in those mics. Now, this is not actually using tom mics. Instead, it's just using a pair of mics with the third mic being, I've got a resistor network, setting it up so that I can have just a 2-mic setup and then a little bit of reinforcement from one inside the kick. But that only goes to show that if you can make it act like it is tom mics, that's all the better. So this is a way of bringing out that low stuff, and you can slow it down and make it a little more natural. Now, one thing you might notice here this is the original Gatelope, and it is a end-to-end plugin. What end-to-end means is it's a audio unit plugin that will do any number of channels that you like. A lot of them are designed to do that. So it'll do mono, it'll do stereo. Logic has this thing that I think I understand how it works, where it's claiming to be stereo or dual mono. That's actually kind of ridiculous because this is an end-to-end, so it's always dual mono. But I think if we go over to this one, and tell you what, let's just duplicate the settings, shall we? So like 0.79, roughly. Treble sustain is on the low side, bass sustain way up. Might as well have that up. And you'll notice that the difference between these, Gatelope is what the VST plugin is going to be like. In fact, the VST is based on this. This is the stereo version, meaning that the gates aren't being done separately on either channel. This might be more useful for many things, honestly. The original Gatelope is end-to-end, partly because it was going to be run, say, in Logic or whatever, on a bunch of mono tracks, so there was no reason to do a stereo one, because it was really kind of designed for spot mics. And it is still designed for spot mics, but the VST plugins like defaulting to stereo, and then you just run them on a mono track if you want to do that. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's see. This is the stereo version. And it actually, okay, so I misread that one. It only gives you a stereo option. So honestly, I'm not really quite sure what's going on there. You can see that with Gatelope itself, I do have it set up as stereo, but it is working as dual mono as it should. So I think that's just a sort of weird thing that Logic is doing. Pay no attention to it then. But here's the idea is, with Gatelinkt, we've got a stereo link going on, so that it's going to be consistent. And you can hear what it's doing. The whole purpose of this plugin is to gate individual tracks in such a way that you can isolate things about them. For instance, with bass sustain all the way up and treble sustain down, when the gate starts closing, it starts rolling off high frequencies really fast, and so it's suppressing cymbals. And it's suppressing cymbals as hard as you want, really. We can have a really fast attack speed, but if that's too fast, then maybe slowing it is going to give us a better reaction. And we can always use our dry wet if we want to combine this effect. But what if you wanted to do something else? For instance, take a kick drum, say, and do something interesting to that. For instance, let's shorten this a little bit. Hey, we've got a beat going on. Or not. Let me restart that. Okay, it wasn't really a beat after all. Doesn't matter, we can still use this. Now I can start shortening this, except for they're both on full sustain, so they're not really attenuating at all. Here's what you get if you crank the treble sustain. It'll just go down to nothing. It's like a sweep. This is not acting like a shelf. Instead, it's acting like the high frequency is just going to go down to nothing. And the low frequencies, the bass sustain, those are going to sweep up. And you could use this on things like cymbals or whatever, but you can also use it to tighten up a kick drum. And I'll show you how you do that. We can crank it up. Let's make it really quick, first of all. So that's an interesting sound that's really aggressive. And then we'll sneak in some treble sustain. If we use full treble sustain, what's going to happen is it's going to keep all of our highs going on. You can kind of hear how it's getting involved. But then if we start including the bass sustain, now we can hear the full range of everything. Excuse me, I'm still recovering a little bit from things. And then, if we also involve the treble sustain, we can kind of control the way that the two things converge, so that the treble sustain is dropping this fast and the bass sustain is coming up this fast. And we can say voice that a little bit lower. They'll go down because the bass sustain isn't converging as fast. Or we can have it converge a little higher but not up into the high frequencies by see, because if we do this, we're retaining all the highs at all times, but that'll cut them right down again. So we end up with this way of determining where they're going to converge based on what the various speeds of the sustains are. Like, we'll leave it a little bit brighter, and then this goes quicker. That way we're getting a kind of mid-rangey hit going on. We'll speed up the treble sustain just a bit. And then as a last touch, we have a very fast attack speed, so we might be able to round off the way that this hits. And then if we slow the bass sustain down just a bit and speed the treble sustain, we can voice where they're converging so that it'll converge down in the lower frequencies just a bit more. Kind of like that. And then speed up the treble decay. And that way we get this sort of shaped kick drum going on, which would work nicely if it was a spot mic. And that's compared with what it sounds like as a raw track. And then, of course, you can blend them. And let's play with the threshold to get silly with it. That's a pretty aggressive sound. We'll slow down the attack speed since it's so ridiculous. And can play with the treble sustain to make it die away almost instantly. In fact, let's try to do something a little weird, which is... No, see, that's too high frequency now. We're not getting any lows out of it because it's dying away so fast. So... Ah, interesting. We're getting some different reactions out of the attack speed. And that the attack speed is triggering on the snare, I think, here. But if I speed it up, it's actually behaving differently. Oh. So here's where you can get into just doing weird stuff. Such as keeping it mostly dry, and then we have this weird little accentuation on the initial part. And this is out of room mics. So there you have it. The VST version of Gatelope is going to resemble this plugin, Gatelinked, because it needs to operate in stereo and have simultaneous gate behavior. But pretty much there you have it. Oh, that was actually interesting. Let us... See, if I crank the threshold up, then it's no longer responding. We're only getting dry. But using this and the combination of some of this other stuff, I can get an interesting combo of things. There's maximum attack speed. And it's giving me some interesting behavior there. It's a very sharp, gatey noise. If I leave the bass sustain completely engaged, seems to be a bit of a threshold point here, whereas You're getting this sound here, and then this sound here. Maybe it's not as much of a threshold point as I thought. Yeah, we're pretty much just bringing in more of this treble stuff. Anyway, Gatelope is a free plugin. It's audio unit VST for Mac, PC, and Linux. And it is MIT open source. So if you want to incorporate the code into your plugin or something like that, all you've got to do is also make your thing. Pardon me, I'm coming off of kind of being sick and stuff. I'm not thinking too clearly. As a matter of fact, no, MIT open source does not require you to make your thing open source. What it does require you to do is credit where you got the idea. And that would be Airwindows. So if you want to use the code, you can use the code as long as you credit where you got it from. Now, this work is supported by Patreon. And it's one of the reasons that I wind up getting kind of splat and wiped out is I went to a convention for Patreon, and that was quite wonderful. That was very cool. Granted, it was the succession of a series of rather demanding things, meaning that I'm going to have to be taking it a little bit more easy for the beginning of the winter here. But no regrets, because it was very cool. I am hoping that I will rebound to further health and cranking out more plugins and doing more things. I do have a new thing that I have thought of to do, which is this Monday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the United States. I'm going to go online, and on my YouTube channel where you're seeing this, I'm going to be doing a sort of AMA, a Ask Me Anything, that I'll just be there, and rather than focusing entirely on jamming on like the music things, I will be answering questions. And if that works out, which I certainly hope that it does, I'll be answering questions every week like that. Because that's not too much to ask, I don't think. I've been putting out so many plugins that people kind of need direction around them rather than just being given more plugins. So I have to think of new stuff to do. And honestly, helping people is not a hardship for me. I enjoy it. So I would like for people to show up and say, what plugin should I have? And I'll say, yeah, download the free ones and see what you like and learn how to do it. Back when I was doing commercial plugins, that's how it would work, is people would be like, what plugin should I buy? And I would say, here, have these free ones, and don't worry about buying them just yet until you know specifically what you want. So yeah, I need to go and make my tacos for dinner and rest up some more, because I'm still getting over the galloping cruds and not feeling super well. But it should be good, and my head will be more in the game once I've rested up a little bit. I do have plenty of more plugins coming out, and I'm working on a bunch of them as I speak. This is what I've got for you today, and I'll keep things moving. And thank you for sticking with me through this. Thank you, those of you who have jumped on the Patreon. Like I always say, if you would have bought one of these for $50 a pop, please jump on the Patreon for like $50 for that year. Next year, come back, see if I made another one that you would want to buy if it was being sold like that. But If you can't, that's kind of one of the reasons that I started doing Patreon in the first place, is I want people to have access to these tools. Whether or not they can be squeezed like a lemon for all of the money to come dripping out of them. So, that said, thank all of you. Thank you all. And I will be talking to you again. And you can see me on Monday whether or not I am in spiffy plug-in video making condition or whether I'm just crashed out and answering questions for you, because I can do that whatever shape I'm in. And I will enjoy that because I like to help. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.